A while ago, I received an email from a brand offering me free stuff in exchange for me making a video out of it. I often get this type of email. I usually don't bother with them because 1, I don't need what they're sending me. 2, it takes too long for me to make a video. Partly because it takes a lot of time to draw and then it takes a lot of time to edit. But mostly because I spend most of my time playing Bloons TD. And 3, I'm not getting paid to do them. But I chose to accept this one this time around because I was already planning to buy what they sent me. So now I can save the money I was going to spend and I can use them into something more important. But now I have to make the video. So I guess I'm making a review. This is what Ohuhu sent me. The Ohuhu Honolulu 120 marker set. It comes in this nice bag and these swatches that you need to fill in yourself, which you should fill in yourself, so you would know what the actual color of the marker is. Since the color on the cap and the names can be very misleading, it also comes with a sheet of plastic that you can put under your paper so that the ink won't bleed through, which is really nice. Nice for me and my table. Not so nice for the turtle who will mistake this for a jellyfish 30 years from now. So yeah, I will be reviewing these, but I also need to be fair and balanced. So for the sake of fairness and balancedness, I am also going to review another set of markers. This, the Lion City 24 Colors Coloring Pen, washable and non-toxic. I can attest that it's non-toxic. It's not very delicious though. Oh yeah, and there's this other brand that you might consider if you're planning to buy markers, considering they have practically the monopoly for it for the longest time. But they didn't send me free stuff, so I had to buy them myself. So I spent all the money left in my bank account to get as many Copic markers as I can afford. They came in a set. I thought the skin tones would be more balanced, but they're lighter than I expected. These 4 are so light, they're making commentary videos on YouTube. I'm not getting sponsored, by the way. Let's be honest, no one's stupid enough to spend money on these videos. They just sent me the markers. So if their markers suck, I'm going to say it. That also means I'm not getting paid. So the other markers in this video are funded in part by the beautiful people who forgot to cancel their memberships this month. Lol, get scammed. To test the Ohuhu markers, I have prepared this drawing of Karlach from Baldur's Gate 3. I start with an underlayer of orange, or apricot to be precise. Alcohol markers aren't opaque, unlike oil paints, so I didn't color in spots that will be highlights later. Then I used a couple shades of red for the midtones, which should cover most of her skin. Right now she's looking like a tomato, or like an extra spicy Cheeto, or like that kid next door whenever I throw peanuts at him. He was a nice kid. It should look better once I start applying shadows, which I'm going to use a deep dark red for. Although I think it's a bit too dark, it will get better once it dries. I hope. Then the next will be the eyes, which would be yellow. Then the hair, which would be several shades of gray and some shades of reds and purples. You know, I haven't actually played Baldur's Gate 3 yet. I don't have enough space in my SSD, so I don't actually know Karlach's personality or story, but I am willing to burn an entire orphanage for her. 2 orphanages. 2.5 max. I mean, look at her. Come on. Anyway, next would be clothes or leather straps or whatever the hell she has going on here. Then the horns. And finally, the line art. I saved ice after I finished rendering to prevent the ink from smudging. I know I could just wait for it to dry, but I'm not that patient. After that, I have a white Posco pen, which I can use for the highlights. And we're done. That's not bad for a first try. I mean, this is my first try. I totally didn't make the same drawing before and screwed up the process like an hour in. Shit. Which made me make another drawing just to finish this video. Totally, that didn't happen. This was my first try. To test the Copic markers, I have this drawing of Frieren from my favorite anime this season. If you don't know, she's an elf that slays demons, so I guess you can call her Demon Slayer. Anyway, I only have 6 colors, so I'll be using Copic for the skin and Ohuhu for the rest. This way I can compare them directly. Using Copic, I can definitely feel some difference. The first difference is the tip. Ohuhu's tip is somewhat hard and stiff. It still feels like a brush, but it doesn't give too easily. Copic's tip, on the other hand, is softer in contrast. See, if you make them touch tips, you can see that Ohuhu is harder. I think Copic's softer brush is a bit better for blending. It just feels nicer. But when applying layers, I think Ohuhu is a bit better. Another difference is that Ohuhu's tip feels a bit more wet. I feel like it applies ink much more generously compared to Copic. It's not that big of a difference. I don't think I would have noticed it if I didn't use them together, but yeah. I even tested it, and you can see that Ohuhu bleeds a bit more on the next paper. So you kinda have to be more careful with Ohuhu, but otherwise I think they're comparable to each other. I don't think there's a lot of meaningful difference, especially for people just starting out. I'd say they're both good. Copic is a bit better when blending, but I think Ohuhu glides better on the paper. So yeah. Alright, we're done with this one. Time for the big one. The Lion City 24 pen marker. To test it, I have this drawing of Megamind. There's not a lot of color available, especially in the skin tones department, but we do have a bit more blues and purples, so I'm working with that. Unlike the first two markers, they don't have brush tips, and it also peels the paper if you stroke it too fast. Wait, if you use fast strokes, I think I'm gonna have a stroke. But if we don't use fast strokes, it doesn't apply evenly. So you can either have these really ugly stroke lines or paper shavings. Also, it runs out of ink really fast. The blue I'm using dried up, so I had to get another one to finish it. So these markers are not fun to use. They shave off your paper if you use it too fast. You can't blend with it, and they dry up really quickly. Now, you might think that these are bad things, that these markers aren't even worth getting, and that I shouldn't even be comparing them against Ohuhu and Copic. Anyway, we're done. He doesn't look like Megamind. He looks like Megamind's cousin, Kilo Brain. Anyway, first person to like this video will get this drawing. This is not optional. You will get it even if you don't want it. I will put it under your pillow tonight. I am inside your walls. Copic and Ohuhu are both good markers. Unless you have very specific preferences, either of them should be fine. Personally, I like the amount of ink that Ohuhu applies compared to Copic, but I do prefer blending with Copic. But the thing is, even though the gap in quality is almost negligible, the gap in their prices isn't. Copic is around 4 to 5 times more expensive than Ohuhu. For $100, you can have 120 Ohuhu Honolulu markers. For the same price, you can only afford 24 Copic markers. And Ohuhu gets cheaper the more markers you buy, so you get more value per marker. Copic doesn't really do that. The price per marker stays relatively the same. I should mention that you can refill both of them, but Copic has more refill colors, while Ohuhu only has 51 as of the moment. So if you go through markers like I go through caffeine, and you're using colors that's specifically not available for Ohuhu refills, and your last name is Bezos, then Copic might be worth it. But in my opinion, Ohuhu is better, especially if you're on a budget. It's just not worth paying 5 times more for a marginally better marker. It's better to buy more colors instead. Besides, they're probably going to add more refills in the future. Oh yeah, these cost me $1, and I bought more in case one dried out, which it did. So yeah, if you're planning to buy markers and you're on a budget, Ohuhu is good. It's reasonably priced. It's better than Copic in some areas. It's worse in others. If you want better blending and more refill options, and you're willing to take a second mortgage on your house, then buy Copic. And if you have $1, keep it. Or give it to me to fund my gambling addiction. Anyway, thank you Ohuhu for giving me free markers. I will not use them responsibly.